Welcome to ADEM's Electronic Drinking Water Reporting System, or EDWRS User Video Training Guide. In this video, we'll walk you through EDWRS, your tool for drinking water compliance reporting to ADEM. Whether you're brand new or just need a refresher, we'll cover the essentials so you can feel confident using the platform. By the end of this guide, you'll know how to create an account, submit documents, samples, and monthly operational reports, and retrieve reference information crucial for your compliance. Let's get started. First, a few things to know about this video. This video was produced in ADEM's test environment. The official version of EDWRS is located at the URL shown here and should be used for compliance purposes. To request technical assistance or report problems with the application, email edwr@adem.alabama.gov. For issues with your account, email ademwebportal@adem.alabama.gov. For questions related to your reporting requirements, users should contact the Drinking Water Branch at 334-271-7773. Now that we've got that bookkeeping out of the way, let's jump into the application. To do that, we'll open up a new browser window and we'll navigate to the EDWRS application. Upon arriving at the EDWRS homepage, let's take a look at the application and talk about a few things. On the left-hand side, you'll have your main navigation menu, right now only showing an option for the homepage and a link to email support if needed. In the top right corner, you'll see the name of the application as well as a small briefcase. This briefcase can be used to access your ADEM web portal account. Your web portal account is shared across multiple ADEM applications, and it's where you can configure your password settings and your security questions if needed in the future. In the content part of the page, you'll notice a nice bright orange header labeled Announcements. In this section, you will find information about recent releases to EDWRS, which could include bug fixes, updates, or other information that may pertain to you as an EDWRS user or water system personnel. At the bottom of the page, you'll find a welcome message and an option to sign in. Below the sign in option, you'll see several links to some reference material that you may find useful. First is a quick start guide, which is a 2-page document which quickly walks you through creating a new account, requesting some permissions, and walking through the identity proofing process needed to submit items in EDWRS. Additionally, there's a full user guide and an XML guide and Analytes reference chart. These last two are useful if you're trying to work on uploading analytical sample results to ADEM via EDWRS. To access EDWRS for the first time, you will need to create an account. We will walk through that process now. From the EDWRS homepage, we will click Sign In. You will be taken to the ADEM web portal sign in screen. Because we are creating a new account, we don't yet have an email or a password to enter. If you look below that, it will say New Account, Start Here. We want to click that blue link. Once you have clicked the Start Here link, you will be taken to the ADEM web portal registration page. First, you will be presented with some terms and conditions. Go ahead and continue. Next, fill out all the required fields on the form. I will do so now. I've completed all the required fields. When I'm done with that, I want to click Register. When you click Register, you'll be notified that a registration email has been sent to the email you provided for your account. We will navigate to that email address now and we'll click the link to verify our email. So I've navigated to my email, and as you can see in my inbox, I have an email from the ADEM web portal to confirm my email. In this email, on the very first line, you'll see a nice big blue link that says, by clicking here, and that means to verify your email. So we'll click that link. Once you click, you'll be returned to the ADEM Web Portal registration screen. We'll ask you for some additional identifying information. We'll complete those required fields now. You will also be asked to complete 5 security questions here. For the purposes of this video, I will just select the first 5 questions and enter some arbitrary answers that we can use later. In the password, you can choose your own, or if your browser asks, it can create a password for you. I will go ahead and create one of my own. The password must comply with all of the bulleted points in the black pop-up menu. Upon doing so, you click register again, and then you will be notified that you've been successfully created an account in EDWRS. Now, to use that account, we can simply click sign in. We can punch in the email address that we just set up and enter the password that we just created and click log in. When you log in for the first time in this way, you will be taken to the ADEM Web Portal home screen. On the left hand side in the navigation menu, you'll see an option that says My Applications. You want to drop that down and select EDWRS to access the EDWRS application for the first time as a signed in user. After logging in to the EDWRS application for the first time, you'll see you still don't have very many options on the main navigation menu. In the middle of the page, you'll notice that it says the EDWRS account has not been found. This is because you are a new user and don't yet have any permissions. You can either choose the account recovery option or the new account option. For the vast majority of users, you're going to want to select new account, as the account recovery option was primarily for migrating users from our legacy EDWRS application to this new, more modern version. For now, we're going to click New Account. Once it loads the next page, you'll see it says create new account. It gives you some information about your portal account, and then it asks you a couple of questions. For instance, which type of organization do you represent? If you choose lab or water system, then you will choose whichever organization it is that you represent from the drop-down menu. And then you'll choose the level of permission that you are requesting. Now, let's take a second to talk about permissions in EDWRS, and then we'll return to this page and select the appropriate one for us. User permissions in EDWRS can be a bit complex, so let's talk about how these user permissions work, what things you can do with specific user permissions, and how water system versus lab permissions interact with each other. Below, you will see 2 tables taken from the EDWRS user guide. The table on the left defines user roles as would be needed for a water system in EDWRS. The role of a preparer is basically a read-only role that can also enter data into the system. The certifier can do all the things a preparer can do, but they can also create submissions to the department. Certifiers and administrators must be identity proofed. The administrator can do all the things a certifier can do, but they can also manage user accounts for the water systems that they are an administrator for. On the right-hand side, we have a table that outlines the lab authorization privileges. In order for a lab or a user of a lab to perform any action for a water system, the lab itself must be authorized as either a certifier or a preparer. That overall lab role defines the actions that any user of the lab can take regardless of their own individual permissions. Each individual lab user can also be a certifier or a preparer. However, they are limited by the overall lab's role with that water system. Let's take a little bit closer look at this As you can see here, a water system is its own entity in EDWRS. Each water system can have multiple users. Each water system user is attached to a water system and can have the role of preparer, certifier, or administrator, as previously described looking at those tables from the user guide. Similarly, each user of a laboratory is attached to a laboratory and can have the role of preparer, certifier, or administrator for that laboratory. Note the orange line here creating separation between laboratory users and water system users. A laboratory user cannot perform any actions with respect to a water system unless the lab has been authorized. Once a water system has authorized a laboratory to perform actions on its behalf as either a certifier or a preparer, any users of that laboratory can then perform actions on the water system's behalf, according to their own privileges within the system and limited by the overall laboratory's permissions for that particular water system. As we return to the EDWRS application, we will walk through this form to create a new account requesting those permissions. So we'll assume that we're a user for a water system. So we'll select water system and we'll choose a system that we would like to represent. Additionally, now we want to choose our level of permission. For testing purposes, I'm going to choose the highest level of permissions, which will allow me to do the most things in our test system. I will point out where something may not be available if I was at the level of a certifier or preparer. So once I select my options, I will click Request Account, and I will be notified by the system that that request has been sent. Now, before a user can have permissions, an administrator, either with ADEM or an existing administrator with the water system, must approve that request. Now that that request has been sent and I'm waiting on my administrator to approve that request, I want to take a look at what's now available to me in the application. Starting on the left-hand side, you can see that now my username is listed and my effective permission, which is currently read-only because I don't have any permissions. I still have a link to the EDWRS homepage, but now I have a few additional options, such as reference material, a list of analytes. We'll look at that. This just provides an analyte reference list that gives you the analyte codes, the method codes. This is probably more useful for lab personnel or water systems looking to see what methods may be available for their testing. Under documentation, I have those links to those user guides and those XML guides and those analyte reference charts that we talked about before. Under account, I can view my profile, and that is my ADEM web portal profile that is shared across all applications within the ADEM web portal. Under that profile is where I can update my security questions and my password if necessary. I can also view any pending requests that I have out there waiting to be approved, and I can also request additional access if I'm working for one or more water systems or a water system and a lab, for example. Under pending requests, if you look, you can now see the request that we made. We can see the date, the water system or lab it was for, the permission we requested, and whether this was a change to an existing permission or a new permission. Now I'm going to log out of this account. I'll log back in as an administrator, and I'm going to approve that request. Now this is my internal ADEM account, and as an admin of the system, I can approve that request for that user, which they're both right here. I'll approve a couple of them just in case we need to use that second account. And now I will sign back out, and I'll sign back in as the external user that we were just testing under. So now we have signed back in as an external user, and you'll notice two things right off the bat. First, our username in the top left corner has been updated to show that we now have an effective permission, a highest level permission of administrator. Additionally, there are significantly more options in the navigation menu. We still have our link to the home page, our reference material, our documentation, and our account. But now, since we're an administrator water system, we also have an admin tab at the bottom where we can manage our users and view requests for permissions. We also have some other options such as documents, sample data, lead service lines, EMORs, and we still have our link to EDWRS support. Now that we have our account set up and we have some permissions with a water system, we're going to start talking about what you can actually do in EDWRS. We're going to start with document submittals. To submit a document in EDWRS, we'll start at the home page. On the left-hand side, we'll find the Documents option from the navigation menu. We'll drop that down and click Submit a Document. Once you go to the Submit a Document page, you will find a simple form that requires you to select the water system for which you are submitting a document, select the document type, choose the document. All documents must be in PDF format, and then you will click Sign and Submit. As you can see here, the Sign and Submit button is not available to us, and that is because this blue box which says ID proofing required. In order to create a submission, you are required to ID proof through the ADEM web portal. This only needs to be done once across all applications. ID proofing is a required element of creating submissions in EDWRS or any other application in the ADEM web portal. To do the identity proofing process, you'll click the link in the blue box here. This video will not go through the identity proofing process. However, if you have questions regarding identity proofing, you can contact the ADEM Web Portal help desk at ademwebportal@adem.alabama.gov. Once you have completed the identity proofing process, you will be returned to the Submit a Document page. On this page, you can then select your water system, select a document type, select a document to upload, answer your secret question, and enter your password. And then you click Sign and Submit to submit the document. Once the document is successfully submitted, you will be taken to the Documents List page where you can view the submission you just made and all previous submissions. If you look at the left-hand menu, there is also an Archive Document section. This section holds any document that was submitted prior to October 14th, 2022. Next, we will discuss the submission of service line inventories in EDWRS. To submit a service line inventory in EDWRS, we'll again start with the home page. On the left-hand menu, we'll look for the lead service lines option. Dropping down that menu item gives us two options, Submit and File List. We'll choose Submit. Notice this is a very similar page to the document submission page, and we don't see the blue box notifying us that we need to identity proof because we've already done so. On this page, you're going to select your water system. Then you'll need to choose either an XML or an Excel file. The department has provided templates for the Excel file along with instructions on completing it, and we've provided a schema if a water system would like to use XML. So we'll choose a file, then we'll answer our secret question, and we'll put in our password, and we'll click Sign and Submit, similar to the document submission. After clicking Sign and Submit, the file will be uploaded and we will be taken to the file list to view submissions similar to document submission process. Next, we will discuss the submission of sample results in EDWRS. This video will not get into the complexities of submitting sample results, but we'll just show a brief overview of the UI and the options that are available within the application. To get started, submitted sample results in EDWRS from the home page, we'll select the Sample Data option from the left-hand navigation menu. We'll then select Samples from the list. On the Samples page, we'll point out a few things. At the top of the page is an option to select the analyte group for which you are going to report samples. Selecting an option from this drop-down filters the table at the bottom of the page. You can only select and submit results from a single analyte group at a time. So if you're, for example, submitting bacteriological results and synthetic organic chemical results, you need to do those in 2 separate submissions for each analyte group. In order to create a new sample, you simply go to the new sample box in the middle of the page. You would select the water system, the analyzing lab, the collection date of the sample, and whether the sample is a microbial sample or not. For purposes of demonstration, we'll choose microbial sample, and we'll click Add Sample. Once you click Add New Sample, you're taken to the Add Sample page. On this page, you'll see at the top some information you need to enter about the sample itself, such as the sample number, the sample type, the facility at which the sample was taken, and the sampling point where the sample was taken. There's also a box to check whether this sample is for compliance or not. If for compliance is checked, the sample result will be used in compliance determinations with ADEM. But if this is a special sample that shouldn't be used for compliance, you want to uncheck this box. Below this Add New Sample box, you'll see there's a place to add field data. Certain measurements, such as bacteriological sampling results in the distribution system, require field measurements. Other ones do not. Since this is a bacteriological result, we'll enter a field measurement here. You simply hit Add Field Data. It adds a new row to this box. You can choose the type of field data that you'd like to enter. You can put some information in. And that's it. Next, we want to add results. You cannot save a sample without any results. So we'll click the Add Result button. That box will be expanded to give us a form to enter our result details. From the result details, we'll choose our analyte, we'll choose our method. The lab should be completed from the lab you chose going into this page, and then you'll enter your result details. If it's absent, you can simply select absent. If it's present, you're going to need to fill out some information related to it. The analysis start date, analysis start time, any comments you want to add, and the data quality code. Then we'll simply click Save New Sample. If you notice, I tried to save the sample before I added the result. So I'm going to click Add on the result, and now you'll see that result appears in this list, and I can save the sample. And that's a very brief overview of doing a direct entry on a sample result. Be aware that the details you might be asked for change based on the analyte group or whether it's a microbial sample or not. Once you have entered samples on this page, in order to create a submission, you must select a sample result from the box below and hit Create Submission on the right-hand side. You will be taken to a page where you can view the sample result as a report. And this is a representation of what will be stored in ADEM's e-file system. You can also view the raw XML that was generated from the sample result. So we'll go ahead and we'll submit this sample now. Once a sample result has been submitted, you're actually taking back to the sample's entry page, just in case there's other samples you'd like to submit. Now let's look at the other options that are available under the sample submissions. The second option available is to upload an XML. You have the option, and this is usually a more convenient way to get sample results into EDWRS, and that's to upload an XML. Again, you must choose an analyte group, as you can only upload results for a single analyte group at a time. Once you've selected your analyte group, chosen your XML file, you can click Validate to get some messages about that XML or get a green success message that that XML is formed correctly. And once that's done, you can click Upload Data to add results into the system. Next, we'll look at the Positive Back to You notification page. This page would be used by lab personnel to report to ADEM within 24 hours the result of any positive bacteriological result. As this account does not have any permissions with the lab, I won't see any labs in the Reporting Lab dropdown. However, I can demonstrate the way this form works by filling out the rest of it. So As you can see, I filled out the water system that incurred the bacteriological result, the contact name of the water system who should be reached out to in the case that the department needs to speak with them, the type of sample, the date of the sample, and then I'll enter sample results. So that's for one. If I had 2 or 3 or 4 or more positives, I could simply click Add Sample to add as many positive results as I want. If I accidentally add too many, I can remove them. If you notice below, there's a list of recipients that will receive notifications upon submittal of this result. The lab personnel submitting the result should receive a receipt. The water system who incurred the positive bacteriological result will receive an email letting them know what actions they need to take. ADEM staff will receive the result, including our bacteriological compliance officer, the inspector for the drinking water, and the general EDWRS inbox. If the water system chosen purchases groundwater from other systems, those systems would be listed here to ensure they receive notification that triggered monitoring may be required. Finally, on the samples submission options, we have a list of our previous submissions, and again we have an archive submissions for those submissions that were received prior to October 14th, 2022. Next, we will discuss the process of completing an electronic monthly operating report in EDWRS, including data entry, preparing and submitting a report, and viewing previous submissions. To get started working in the electronic monthly operating report system, from the EDWRS homepage, we'll go to our left-hand navigation menu, we'll find the EMORs option, and we'll open it up. Under that menu item, you see 3 options: data entry, prepare monthly report, and view submissions. Working our way down the list, the first step to preparing an electronic monthly operating report is data entry. On the EMORS data entry page, we see that the user must select a water system for which they would like to enter data, and then select a monitoring period. Below that, you'll see the user has several options for getting data into the system, including a daily data entry form, a monthly data entry form, an option to export those requirements to Excel for tracking outside of the system, and then an option to import that data back in using that Excel template. For now, let's start with the monthly data option. To begin, we'll select the monthly option. On the monthly data entry page, you'll notice there's a drop-down at the top of the page that says choose a facility or group. Looking at the options in this drop-down menu, you'll notice a few things. First, you have some groupings of facilities, and these are similar facilities with simple requirements that are grouped together for convenience for data entry. For example, we have an interconnections group, an intakes group, treatment plants, and wells. The treatment plants group specifically is only going to be simple treatment plants, such as chlorination at a well or treatment for iron and manganese at a well. More complex treatment plants will be listed by themselves by the facility ID and name, such as this one here, which is a surface water treatment plant. To get started, let's click one of the groups and see what our data entry requirements are. On this page, you'll see a spreadsheet-like format that includes both consecutive connections in the interconnections group. Under the facility name, you'll see a second header row that is the limit set name, or the group of parameters to be monitored. Under that limit set name, you'll see the parameters that the facility is required to monitor and submit on a monthly or more than monthly basis, including in this case flow and chlorine for a consecutive connection. You can type your results directly into this spreadsheet, or you can copy and paste from an external spreadsheet. I will just do some quick copy paste here just so we can get some data in the system to test. Now that I've entered some data, I always want to make sure I save that data by clicking Save Changes on the far right. You should receive a green notification that those changes were successfully saved. If you receive an orange or a red notification, it means an error may have occurred and the data may not be saved successfully. Always try saving again, and if you're having trouble, please contact the help desk. Now that we've put a little bit of data into that group, let's look at some of the other groups. For example, our raw water sources such as intakes, wells, springs, or reservoirs will be listed in a similar fashion with the facility ID and name at the top, the limit set, and then the parameters to be reported. Treatment plants, as you can see, they have more parameters that are supposed to be reported, and so they look a little bit differently. But again, at the top of the page, you have the facility ID and name, the limit set, or again, the group of parameters to be monitored, and then the parameters themselves. Systems would need to come in and put all their data in, either manually, copy-paste from external spreadsheet, or import from our exportable template. Now, for facilities that are ungrouped, such as this facility here, you'll notice that the drop-down includes the facility ID and name. Therefore, the spreadsheet does not include it because it's just for one facility. But again, the top header row is that limit set or group of parameters to be monitored, and then for this particular facility, they've got several limit sets, such as water quality control tests, filter plant pump rates, chemical feed rates, and under each of those is a list of parameters that should be monitored. Now, the system may not be monitoring for all of these parameters, in which case they can contact their drinking water inspector and request that those parameters be removed because they're not performing that particular treatment and don't need to monitor. As we scroll to the right, you'll notice a slight change as we get to what we call child facilities at these plants. For example, individual basins or individual filters require their own level of monitoring. For these facilities, the top header row will be the parameter to be monitored, and the second will be the filter or basin that needs to be monitored. And this is to provide some convenience to the water systems, as it would be frustrating to have to scroll and enter this information one filter at a time all the way across this spreadsheet. This spreadsheet should match very closely to what water systems were using previously in the non-electronic system. That concludes the discussion of monthly data entry via our online spreadsheet. Now let's go back and discuss some of the other options. Let's next discuss the usage of our exportable Excel template and importing that in to complete the data entry process. Starting again on the EMOR's data entry page, we've selected our water system and our monitoring period. This time, instead of clicking monthly, we're going to click Export to Excel. Upon doing so, the application will generate an Excel file that the user can download and use to track and submit their sample results. When you open this Excel file, you'll notice that the tabs at the bottom match those drop-down options for the groupings and the individual facilities. And the spreadsheet matches the spreadsheet that was available online. And two things to mention about this exportable template. This is a universal template that can be used for any month. The number of rows available is 31. However, if you use this for a month that has 30 or less days, such as February, you simply just don't fill out those rows, or the application will ignore them when you import for that selected month. The formulas at the bottom will be used to calculate min, max, and average values, which can allow water systems to help QA/QC their data as they're punching it in. There is a hidden row, number 37, that includes the metadata needed for import of this file. You shouldn't alter or modify or delete that row. Doing so will prevent the file from being able to be imported. In a similar fashion to any Excel file, you can fill out this spreadsheet with each month's data. Once you have done so, you can import this data back in. I have a completed spreadsheet that I will import now. So going back to our page, our EMOR's data entry page, we'll select Import from Template. When you do this, you will see a separate box at the bottom for our data import process. You'll need to choose a file, and the file will need to be in Excel format. We'll open that file, and then we'll click Start Import. The file will begin processing, and you will be notified that it's continuing to process by the spinning loader at the bottom of the screen. If the processing fails, you will be notified by a red error message. Processing of these files can take up to 25 to 30 seconds, depending on the complexity of the reporting requirements. Once the file has been processed, you will be presented with a summary table showing you the processing status for each column in the Excel file. If you find that some data wasn't transferred into the system, you can download this import summary as a CSV file and provide it and the file you're trying to upload to ADEM for some troubleshooting. Now that that's uploaded to August 2025, let's go back to our monthly view and take a look at August 2025 to see that our data was imported properly. You can see that that data has been completed in full, where the system was able to identify a matching requirement. After reviewing your data and confirming that it was imported properly and the data is now complete, you're ready to submit and prepare your report. Before we review how to prepare and submit a report, let's take a quick look at the daily data entry option. Let's take a look at the daily data entry option for electronic EMORs. Again, we're on the EMOR's data entry home screen. We've selected our water system and our monitoring period, and we'll select the daily option. When you select the daily option, you'll see a few things that are different from the monthly data entry screen. Particularly at the top of the screen, you'll see this is the EMOR daily entry page. You'll see the water system we're working with, and you'll see a similar drop down. However, you don't see the option for groups on this one. The daily data entry page does not support grouping, so you have to enter information one facility at a time. If we choose a facility such as a consecutive connection, you will see some similar titles. On the left-hand side, you'll see those limit set names such as MM Basic or Master Meter Basic, and this is the group of parameters that a system would be required to monitor for consecutive connections such as flow and residual chlorine. An operator could carry their phone with them in the field and pull this form up and enter this data as they're collecting it and save it, and it would be available at the end of the month for reporting. There is a date selection here where you can select which day you'd like to enter data for. The date selection only allows you to enter data for the days in the current monitoring period that are on or before the current date. You cannot enter data for a future date. If we look through some other ones of these, you'll see very similar approaches to each facility. If you look at a more complex facility, such as a surface water treatment plant, you'll notice that the daily data entry page gets a little complex. I do not recommend using the daily data entry page to enter data for these facilities, as it can be difficult to navigate and know where you have already entered data or not. I recommend using the monthly data entry option or the export and import of an Excel template for entering data for more complex systems. Once we have entered our data into the EMOR system, at the end of the month, we can prepare and submit a monthly report to ADEM quickly and easily for compliance. From the EDWRS homepage, the EMOR's option on the navigation menu, choose Prepare Monthly Report. Upon doing this, you will be taken to the Prepare Monthly Operational Report page. Again, at the top of the page, you must select the water system and the monitoring period for which you want to prepare and submit a report. Once you have done so, you can click Prepare New Report. After you click Prepare New Report, you will be taken to the Prepare and Review Monthly Report page. Before we begin preparing this report, let's go back to the Prepare Monthly Report page and look at the Pending Reports box. In the Pending Reports table, you'll notice it shows us a list of any pending reports we currently have. Most people who are submitting a single report for a single water system should only have a pending report for the current month. However, if you work for multiple water systems or you're doing a revision on a previous report, then you may have one or more showing up here. If there's a pending report there that doesn't need to be there, you can simply delete it. Deleting a report does not delete the data, it simply deletes the pending report, and the data is still there if you need to create a new report from it in the future. In the pending reports table, let's look at the different details that we have about the report. We have the water system that it's for, the name, the reporting period, a status column, and then some actions we can perform. In particular, let's look at the status column. As you can see on the report we just created, it says the general form not completed, 8 of 8 facilities or groups still need data approval, and 1 of 1 facilities needs form completion. If you look to the right in the actions, we have view, submit, and delete. As you can see, the submit option is unavailable to us, and that is because the status still says we have some things to do. To take care of those actions, we click View. View takes you to the Prepare and Review Monthly Report page. Notice at the top we again have the monitoring period and the water system with which we are working. We have a status on the far right, which right now is in progress, and we have a button to submit the report, which is still inactive because we have not yet prepared this report for submission. In order to prepare the report, all of the menu items under the header must receive a green check mark. As you can see, we have general flow balance form, interconnections, intakes, treatment plants, wells, and our individual facilities. These groups or facilities represent those same groups or options that were on the monthly data entry page. In order to successfully submit this report, you must complete any required forms and approve all the data. To start, let's start with the general flow balance form. Looking at this form, this is simply a water flow balance for your water system. We'll enter some data here. As you can see, A, B, and C are raw water pumped, either from surface water, groundwater, or purchased from another system. These are automatically calculated from values you put in on the spreadsheet. If you notice that these values are wrong, it could be an issue of the wrong units or the wrong parameter being reported. Under water sold, this is your total water sold to customers and to other water systems. Your known loss would be things like fire, flushing, line breaks, or backwash. These values were pretty commonly reported by all water systems before. It's just been put in a single form for the electronic system. If you notice, the system will automatically calculate your water loss calculation for you. If you feel that this calculation is incorrect or you calculate it a slightly different way, you can modify these numbers. However, if you do so, I recommend adding comments in the comment box to let us know why you may have done that. Additionally, if you're not going to report data for a facility such as a well because it was down, you probably want to put that here too. That way, when we see data missing, we can look at these comments and know why. As you can see, as I save these, each of the items receives a green check mark. The flow balance form received a green check mark, and the item on the menu on the left received a green check mark. That means that item is done. We want to go through each of the other items and perform this action. So let's look at interconnections. As you can see, it shows you a representation of the data you submitted. In order to receive a green check mark for this item, you must review the data and approve it at the bottom. Once you click Approve, that item and the Data tab gets a green check mark. Let's say you were reviewing this data and you noticed that on August 1st, this value of 1256 needed to be revised. It should have been 1265. It's just a little typo. You can quickly revise this data by clicking Revise Data at the bottom. This will take you to the data entry page for that item where you can update the data. You can hit Save and Return. The data will save and you will be returned, and you can see that value has changed. Then we can click Approve a Data, and now we receive our green check mark. It should be noted that data cannot be modified via the data entry page once there is a pending report for that monitoring period. The only way you can revise that data is via the Revise Data option. If you've approved data already and you realize a mistake, you can remove that data approval and then revise the data. For now, we will continue going down and we'll approve each of the data options. And as you can see, we're receiving green check marks every time we approve that data. Once we reach a facility that isn't grouped, you'll notice that this one has two tabs at the top. For example, it has a Data tab, which again, we can just approve the data if we feel confident the data is correct. However, once we approve the data, it gets a check mark, but the item in the menu does not, and that's because we haven't completed a required form. Clicking the Form tab the water system will be required to complete certain elements of this form in order to proceed. If you save the form while it is blank, the system will let you know which forms are required and which are not. Some of these are conditional based on your answers. I will put in some answers now to demonstrate. Now, I've answered all these in a way that would ensure that nothing else is required, so I can save it. However, for example, if I had said the number of filtered water measurements was greater than 0.3 NTU and then tried to save, it will let me know, hey, there's some additional required information I have to provide. This conditionality can be noted by the indentation of the form questions. So if I answered greater than 0 here, it's going to want me to tell it, were there any 2 consecutive measurements? If I hit no, I can likely proceed. But you can see there's multiple questions that are required based off of this. So once I've answered those required questions, then I can save it. And as you see, once it's saved successfully, it gets a green check mark, and the menu item on the left also gets a green check mark. As you can see, we have green check marks all the way down for each item. Once this is complete, the status in the top right will change from in progress to ready to submit, and the submit report button will become available to us. Before we submit from here, let's look at the prepare monthly report page. As you can see in the pending reports box, the status has been updated. The report is complete and ready to submit, and the submit option is available to us. If I was signed in under an account that didn't have the proper privileges to submit, I would be notified here and the submit button would not be available to me. However, as an administrator for this water system, I do have the ability to submit. So I will click submit and we'll do that now. After clicking submit, you'll be taken to the submit EMOR page. On this page, you can see the water system and the monitoring period that you are submitting for, and you can review a copy of the report before you submit to ensure that all the information was accurate. If you've looked at it and you're good to go, then you can enter the answer to your secret question and enter your password and click submit. Once the application is finished processing the submission, you will be taken to the View Submissions page, where you can view the submission you just made and all previous submissions of electronic EMORs. The submission process can take up to 15 to 20 seconds to complete, so please don't leave the page once you click submit. As you can see, it was successfully submitted, and now we've been taken to the View Submissions page, where you can view all of your previous submissions. Using the link on the left-hand side, you can download that submission, and using the quick links at the top, you can download a list of those submissions for your records. To wrap up the discussion of EDWRS, let's quickly look at some of the resources that are available within the application. Let's take a look at a few of the resources that are available in EDWRS. From the EDWRS homepage, let's look at our left-hand menu and go to References, Sampling Points. On the Sampling Points page, you can see a list of all the sampling points for the water system or water systems the user has permissions for. To view the sampling points from only a single water system, select it from the drop-down and click Filter. The list below will be filtered. You can use the buttons above the table to export this list of sampling points to an Excel file. Additionally, on this page, once you select a water system, you can also click Sample Schedule to view a schedule of the water system's current sampling requirements. This report shows you all the sampling that is still due in 2025 or that has been completed for 2025. It shows you the last results and some information about the sample requirements. If you have any questions about your sampling requirements, you should contact ADEM's Drinking Water Branch to speak to your inspector or compliance officer. Returning to the left-hand navigation menu, we'll look at the Analytes reference. We spoke about this earlier in this video. However, I want to point out and show what this table actually does and show a few additional features. As you can see, we have an analyte group selected at the top, which matches those analyte groups that were available in the sample data entry area. Choosing one of these groups and hidden filter will filter the table below. This shows you all the analytes that are in that group, all of the methods that can be used to analyze for that analyte, and what the correct units. This can be important when you're uploading sample results. Additionally, you can download the full sheet of these requirements by clicking Download Full Sheet from the top right corner. You can refresh the page at any time you want, and if you have a filtered list you'd like to pull, you can use the quick link to download an Excel at the top left of the table. Now let's look at the documentation. Clicking User Guide just allows you to download a PDF of the current user guide. The user guide gets updated anytime there are major releases to the application. Additionally, the XML guide can give you information on how to format an XML for upload of analytical sample results to EDWRS. This is probably most useful to lab personnel. And additionally, there's an analytes reference chart, which is just another copy of that full reference page. This concludes our EDWRS user video training guide. A few things to remember about this video. It was produced in ADEM's test environment, so some things might look slightly different from the official version. The official version of EDWRS is located at the URL shown here. To request technical assistance or report problems with the application, email edwr@adem.alabama.gov. For issues with your account, such as login or password problems, email ADEM web portal at adem.alabama.gov. For questions related to reporting requirements, users should contact the Drinking Water Branch at 334-271-7773. This video was created and produced by ADEM's Water Division Office of Water Services. If you have any questions regarding this video, you can contact me at the email address shown below. Thanks.